Hey, this is Robert Naini, your spray foam advisor, and today I want to talk about negotiation. Recently, I was watching a TV show that was a couple years old. It probably came out around the 2010 time frame, called Outsourced. And in one of the episodes, one of the stars of the show was ready to walk away from a negotiation, walk away from the deal. He's working with the sales rep, and when he didn't get the deal that he wanted, he turns and he's ready to leave, walk away, and not make the purchase. And one of the other stars, steps in and says, "I thought you were going to buy this. This is a gift for your fiance. What are you doing?" And he basically said that he wasn't satisfied with the deal. He wasn't satisfied with the price, so he was ready to walk away. And it made me think about negotiation and all of the keys to the negotiation process and how negotiation can be a complex task, even though we often think of it as a very simple thing. So I want to share some tips with you based on my experiences and some of the books that I've read about negotiation, and give you some ideas and some thoughts that might help you in your future negotiation. So first and foremost, the first tip I want to share with you is directly from Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and he talks about this concept of win-win. As a business owner, as a salesperson in a business, really as a person, every time you're trying to achieve a negotiation, you're trying to get a deal, you're trying to accomplish something, even when you're simply just trying to trade value of any kind, if you're trading money for a good, or if you're just trading a good for another good, or a good for a service, the goal should be to achieve a win-win situation. You should be benefiting as part of the deal, and the other party should also be benefiting as part of the deal. If it's not a win-win, then there's only a handful of other ways that business can be done, and it typically means somebody loses. And we typically try not to operate from a win-lose scenario or a lose-lose scenario. Those are pretty terrible options. So let's focus on ways to do business where it's win-win, where we win and the other party that we're working with wins. That should be the ultimate focus of any deal that we're trying to work on and any deal that we're trying to achieve. Now, once we get into the deal and it's time for the negotiation aspect, some of the tips that I've heard and some of the tactics I've used in the past can be interesting. So one of the ideas I'll tell you that I'll share with you is try not to be the first person to give a number in a negotiation. Now, as the buyer, it is often very easy not to be the first person to offer a number because, for example, in the spray foam world, if I'm a buyer, then I'm not going to set the price for the job. I'm going to get a quote, and that's the first number in the negotiation. However, think about it from your perspective as a contractor. You have to go in and quote what you think are the needs of the customer. And if the customer is explaining to you all of their needs, and basically they're asking for a premium package, and you quote a premium package of $10,000, and they come back and say, "Wow, this is beyond our budget, and we can't do this. Thank you, but no thank you. This is more than we expected. We can't do anything. So we're just not going to do anything at all." So their best alternative to a negotiated agreement for the owner of the building was to do nothing, because the $10,000 value or the $10,000 price tag of the premium package that you thought they needed, that you thought that they wanted, was out of their budget. It was beyond their scope. So how can you address this situation as a contractor? Well, what if you change the conversation up front to their budget? And many of you have done this before, and you probably know that this is a good idea, even if you didn't really know why. But ultimately, asking about their budget guidelines and their budgetary principles and what they're trying to achieve from a budget standpoint can help guard you from putting out a premium package proposal when they can't afford a premium package proposal. So very, very interesting concept there. Try not to be the first to give out a number. And if you're bidding a job, giving an estimate of some kind, it's often beneficial if you can find some type of budgetary guidance to figure out how you can put a package together that fits within their budget, even if it isn't the super premium package that they think that they want. And then you might be able to have a conversation about how to go from the package that meets their current budget to what it would take to get to that super premium package that they really, really want, even though it's not within their budget. There might be an upsell opportunity there, but if you start with a package that's inside their budget, then it's much more likely that you close some kind of business in that situation. Another idea, something I learned from the real estate industry, and something I've learned from a couple of mentors in the real estate side of things, and it's a couple of key questions, and really it comes down to one key question, and the question as a buyer, the question is, can you do any better? And so if you can find out as a buyer, if I'm purchasing something, say I call up a manufacturer to purchase a new rig, and I'm talking to the sales rep, and if I find out that the list price is, say, $80,000, the key phrase, can you do any better? Well, that allows you to give them an opportunity to negotiate with themselves without you giving a number. So it's not the same as you saying, I'll offer $70,000 on this $80,000 item. It's different. It's you saying, can you do any better? One, it gets them working. Can they try to beat that number? They come back maybe with a little bit better. Talk about a couple other points, talk about a couple other aspects, go on to another conversation, and then, down the line, come back. Well, can you do any better than the last price that you've given me? And if you can ask this question 2, 3, or 4 times, especially on high dollar purchases, you will be very surprised at how far you can drive numbers down. And I've had coaches in the real estate industry tell me and talk about deals that they've done where over a week-long conversation they were able to take a seller from a $500,000 purchase price down to a $300,000 purchase price without ever offering a number as the buyer. And all they did was ask questions, and one of their key questions was, can you do any better? So that's just one example of how I've heard that being used. And then ultimately, when you're involved in a negotiation, you have to know what is your bottom line. When is it time to walk away? When are you just no longer interested in the deal? When is it not a win for you in the deal? And that means knowing your numbers. That means knowing your margins. That means knowing, being comfortable with your margins and knowing where it's worth it to do business and when it's worth not doing business and moving on to find another deal. And that leads to a phrase or an acronym in the negotiating space, in the negotiating world, called BATNA, which is the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. And if you know what your BATNA is, if you think about a big negotiation ahead of time, what is the best alternative to a negotiated agreement in this situation, then you'll be better prepared for all of the potential obstacles that you run into. And ultimately, you'll be prepared to walk away from a deal. You'll be prepared to walk away from the situation without being too committed, which ultimately has a lot of power in a negotiating situation. This has been Robert Naini with Spray Foam Advisors, sharing a couple of tips on negotiation. Thanks for checking us out. Catch us on some more videos.